Hello and welcome to today's live stream. I'm so excited that you're here. Do me a favor, let me know where you're joining from in the comments below. Hello and welcome to today's live stream. If you could do me a favor, let me know where you're joining from. With about 90 seconds to go, I'm getting more and more excited, and I hope you are too. Do me a favor, show your excitement in the comments and let us know where you're joining from. pulling back into the station and going to start a new live stream. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. I'm so excited you're here. There's already, looks like about 15 to 16 people that are already joining us, and more will trickle in, I am sure. So I want to say hello to a few people that are joining us who are already in the live stream. Justin Gamble says, stoked for this one. Hello, Justin, and good morning. Karna, back from Red Cross volunteer duty. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. From Canton, Michigan. Sue Morrison, really looking forward to today's live stream with Joel. Sue from Syracuse. Sue from Syracuse. That's hard to say. Welcome, Sue. My friend Jim Summers, happy Friday Eve. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Christopher Gilbert says, please make this your hold music when I call in. I expect to hear from you a lot. Chris loves that music. Getting him pumped, getting him ready to rock and roll. So I'm sorry, I was looking, there's actually like a conversation going on in the comments as well, but we won't share all that because I want to get into today's topic and welcome on today's speaker. Hello, Mr. Joel. How are you doing this awesome day? I hope you're doing well.
Well, thank you, TJ. I'm doing excellent. It's great to be here.
Sorry, there's someone like right over the over my shoulder here, so I'm gonna like be muting, unmuting, and jumping in and out there. So, well, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and share your knowledge with us today. And honestly, I wish we could have recorded the whole pre-show because there was just so much awesome information, and the stories that you shared with me even during that pre-show was awesome. So I'm excited for for me. It's chapter 2. Like I got a little sneak peek on everybody, but give us a little bit of an idea on this topic. So, you know, when we were going back and forth via email, you know, you said, be an artist, live your dream, and make that your career. So what, you know, that's a pretty broad topic. Share with us a little bit about kind of your methodology and, you know, why that resonates so much with you.
Well, so I was taking photography in high school, and it's kind of an interesting story how that all happened, but I was not a very good academic student. And so I was really, photography was sort of like this blend of, you know, you get a camera, you go outside, you take pictures. I mean, yes, I had assignments and everything, but it was really the perfect environment for me to go and excel in something that was still in a classroom. So I was into sports. That's where I kind of hung my hat. So I had a brother who was a straight A student, and he was I used to call him a bookworm. He told me the other day, he didn't like that term, but I used to call him a bookworm. But I'd say, come on, let's go throw the football. And so I was interested in photography on this level that, yeah, I think it fits me, but I had no idea. And, you know, in terms of, you know, when I make it a career, I mean, that didn't even cross my mind. So when I got out of high school, that summer I worked parking cars at a dealership, and I bussed tables at night. So I had 2 jobs, and I've always been a pretty good worker, but I mean, I worked my butt off, and I got enough money to buy my first camera. I went down to the camera store, and I was looking at the time I was looking for I thought it would be a Nikon because I thought that was the cat's meow. It was Nikon F, big old heavy duty, you know, metal body and everything. And so I had the money. I think it was about $350 at the time, which my car was $300. Okay. So I was spending more money on a camera than I had on my car. So anyways, and a little Volkswagen Bug. But anyways, I saw in the behind the glass a Canon EF, and it was black. It was the first all black camera I had ever seen, or I think has ever been introduced to the market. And I was like, I like that. So I ended up buying the Canon instead of the Nikon, but all based on the looks of the camera. But I remember going out and taking pictures, and I thought, I'm a photographer, right? And so I worked into the fall. So I should have been off to college, but my dad was like, I'm not paying for your college because you're a lousy student. And so I ended up working. I got a job working at a surplus, like a backpacking surplus store. So I had new stuff, but old stuff. And in walks the head of a photography department at Pima Community College, Lou Bernal. And he was looking, I didn't know, much about photography, but he said, I'm looking for a waterproof container. And I said, what for? He goes, I'm doing a project and I need it to keep my camera gear from getting wet. And I went, you're a photographer? And he goes, yeah, I'm the professor of photography, head of photography over at Pima Community College. And I go, well, I'm a photographer too, right? Because I had a camera. I thought that was, and he goes, well, you ever thought about taking courses in college, level? And I said, not really. And he said, well, why don't you join my class? And I didn't know at the time that he had a waiting list of 80 students to get in his class.
Oh, wow.
He fast tracked me into it. They were a week into the semester. And so I got in, and the first, I don't know if it was the first day that the lecture, but he said, photography is not just a way to document the world around you. It's an opportunity for you to be an artist, and it's a creative outlet. And I was like I don't know what the front row, but I was in there going, I want to be an artist.
Right.
So that literally changed my life. Now, I say that only because, if you've ever been to a revival, maybe you saw the light, right? And it was like, for the first time, I realized I want to be an artist. So I was into sports, and I thought, well, that's pretty cool to excel in sports. But in my mind, it switched like a light switch. It went, I want to be an artist. And so I have been chasing that. That was over 40 years ago. And Lou Bernal was an incredible instructor. And really, I credit him for the one that kind of kicked me off. I went on, and after that program, and I didn't realize, but that program was recognized nationally. It was such a great program. When I went to ASU, Arizona State University, I walked in with my portfolio to get into some of classes, and almost every professor said, are you from Lou Bernal's program? And I said, yeah. He goes, we can tell, because the best students were coming from his program. So it was a really good intro for me to the photography as being an artist. And then, of course, I had to learn how to make a living at it. So in that first semester class, Lou Bernal put on the wall, on a chalkboard, there was no overhead PowerPoints that we have today. He wrote out 100,000 on the chalkboard. And he said, then he wrote 10%. He said, only 10% of students graduating with a degree in photography move on and work in their field, and work in the photography field. 90% failure rate. Now, I'm sitting there going, that's really good news. I looked at it from 90% of these students in here aren't going to be my competition.
Right. That's such a good way to look at it.
Yeah. So my wife always says, you always look at the glass half full, not half empty. And a lot of people look at the glass half empty, right? I was like, wow, that's good news. But I still realized that, and he even said, the odds of you creating an income with your camera are very small, very small. And then he said only 10% of those that graduate, so 1%, will actually make a decent living at it. And only 1% of those, so it's a 0.1%, will work on a national level. So, and then he said something about a coffee table book in there. It's like a fraction of those people end up doing a coffee table book or whatever. And so I looked at all that as a goal for me to achieve.
And that's what I'm going to throw that up there, because we had a photographer, Justin Campbell, that says, I'm in the 10%. He's doing it, he's making it, he's pushing forward. So I wanted to put that up there. It's resonating well.
Yeah. So how the question is, how do you get into that 10%? And then how do you go into that next level? So only, let's say if you played football in high school, only 10% of all those students that get it, be able to play football in college. And only 10% of those students in college go on to the pros. And only 10% of those into the Pro Bowl. I mean, only 10% of those ended up to be MVP, whatever they call those, at the very top of the game, right? So my question is, how do you go and against all odds, live your dream and make a living with your camera? How do you do that? And I've been looking at that for 40 years, and I've been working at it for 40 years. And so I always say this, and if you've heard me talk, and I've been on stage a lot, and I talk about this topic a lot. If you were to come to me and say, Joel, I want to be successful. I want to be a successful photographer. Can I buy 1 hour of your time? And I say, sure, that'll be $10,000. So what will we talk about? You have 1 hour with me, and you're going to pay me 10 grand. What we talk about? Will we talk about high speed sync, strobing in the field? Well, that'd be a good topic. I like that topic. Will we talk about I don't know, what lens to use to make a good portrait? Well, that'd be a good topic too. But no, I talk about how to make a living with your camera. That's what I would spend my time if you were paying a huge amount of money for me. I'd talk about how to make a living with your camera. A lot of photographers think that and this is one of the biggest misconceptions on the planet, is if they become a really, really good photographer, they will be successful. And unfortunately, that's not the case. And we know it's not the case because I know really good photographers that can't pay their rent.
Aren't making money. Yep.
Yeah. And their car has been repoed, right? So what is the secret? Okay. So what is the secret? And so I talk a lot about that. And I think it's important to understand that. Now, the other misconception is that when I was in college and there was 35 students in that class, and I remember looking around going, and when I put my work up, it gets shredded, right? It was just like, your tail's between your leg and you go out the door, you're like, oh, I can't do this. And one of the things I thought, because I was terrible at academics, right? There's a joke, and I would say, I remember one time I got my report card and I got a C, and I was so excited. So I thought, well, maybe I'm not smart enough. That's one of the things I kept saying. I'm not smart enough to figure this out, right? Because I put my work up and I think it was a good photograph, and they go and shred it. It's not conceptually, all these things that talk about what made a terrible photograph or what made a good photograph. And I was like, I don't understand this. Maybe I'm not smart enough. So, I remember sitting in that class. So this is over 40 years ago. And there's a thought popped into my head. And I know this sounds weird. I thought, I'm a hard worker. I bet if I outwork them, I can compete. At 19 years old, I thought that. Now, I ended up taking Lou Bernal's class, the beginning class, and then the intermediate twice. So I ended up with 3 semesters with him. And you'd log in your hours in the darkroom. And so you had a chart, you'd log in, and then you get like a third of your grade would be how many hours you logged in. A third would be, I can't remember, you're critiquing, a third would be this, whatever. I don't know if we took any tests, but I think there might've been a test, a written test. And so at the end of the semester, guess who logged in the most hours?
Right. 100%.
I did, right? Okay. And when it came time to submit my work, the first time he asked for 10 final prints. I handed in 10 final prints, and I got shredded, and he gave me a B. I was like, wow, I got pretty good. So the next semester, he asked for 10 prints. I handed 20 mounted prints for my final, and I got a B. The third semester, I handed in 40 final prints, and I got a B. He never gave me an A. And so I was almost in tears. I went into his office and I said, why did you give me, a B? And he goes, because you're probably the only student in my classes that I know that can make it in the real world. And I don't want to make it easy for you.
Wow.
Sounds pretty good, huh?
Yeah.
And he did. He actually paved my way to the next level of whatever I had to do. He didn't make it easy for me. Now, but I had that concept in my head that if I can outwork someone, I have a chance. I'm not going to make it on my intellect. No one's ever accused me of being brilliant. So I got to be a hard worker. Well, I discovered something that's the secret. Talk to anyone who's at the top of the game. They'll wear you out. You follow them around, they'll wear you out because they're nonstop workers. And they're always doing something. They're never sitting still. They're never waiting for the cows to come in. They're out there constantly shooting. So I talk about the 50 self-assignments that I do. I made a goal of every week I do at least one big photo shoot, non-paying, no clients, whatever. I go out and I create an image that I can put into my portfolio to further my career. And so a lot of times I have to put up some kind of, financial, money to make it happen, right? Digital's nice because you don't pay for film and process anymore, but I have to pay model or pay something, whatever. So I'm always creating an image to further my career. So I always talk about repeating the process over and over. So I'm always moving forward. I never sit still. Now, this is a little side note because I've talked about this, and my boys are in. Three of my boys, I have four boys. Three of them are in LA working in the film industry in Hollywood, and they want to be movie directors and script writers and all that. And so when this whole lockdown came around, I called them up and said, "Hey boys, this is the time to advance your career." Now, why do I know that? Because the single greatest advancement of my career, every time I've seen a huge leap in my career, has been when it's been the worst economy. I remember in the 80s, I started out in Denver. In 1985, I went to 84. I went to Denver, and I set up a studio with a buddy, and it was a bust in Denver. If you know anything about the economy in that time, and it was like the town was a ghost town. And that's where I started out. But I ended up my first year, I logged in over 3,000 cold calls. I logged back before computers, I had 3x5 cards. I logged them all in. And I showed my portfolio over 200 times that first year. And that set that template of me pounding the streets paid off and set I guess you'd say the precedence for me for the next 30 years. Because I always was marketing. I learned how to market the hard way with nobody. the doors, I had to knock the doors down to get in. And then, later it was much easier for me to get in the doors, but I learned it the hard way. And then in 2006, 7, 8, when ad agencies were closing their doors and I was doing very well financially as an advertising photographer, all of a sudden I lost 90% of my clients. Or income. So I had to live on 10% of what I was used to living on. And things went really bad for me. And so during that time, guess what happened? I came up with my edgy sports 3-light approach, the 2 edge lights and 1 overhead light. And I shot everyone I could find, every athlete I could find, I shot during that time period. I had no money. The money wasn't coming in, but I never sat still. And then when the economy started coming back, guess who was ahead of everyone else?
You were.
I was.
Yep.
So guess what's happened the last 2 months during the lockdown?
You've been focused.
I have worked harder than I've had in a long time creating images. And because I know this is the time to advance my career, because most people are going to either take a break waiting for the cows to come home or whatever they call that. And, or they're going to quit. So, when we look at a career and living my dream, so I want to be a photographer and I'm making a living, there are going to be 1,000 things that will keep you from doing that. Always.
Yep.
Every time I turn a corner, something that's going to cause me to get discouraged.
Right.
Now, I talk a lot about this, and I talk about how, as an artist, so you start out, be an artist, live your dream, create an income with your camera. Being an artist is no easy thing.
No.
So we have a camera, it's a technical process, but it's also a very artistic, creative side. So you go take a series of pictures, or you think it's a really good series of pictures, and you put it out there, and guess what? Someone's going to hate it. Yep. Someone's going to tell you you're the worst photographer on the planet. And just yesterday or the day before, I put up one of my cowboy pictures that I just shot, and someone's, you get the praises. Hey, you're amazing, Joel. Wow, you kick butt. You're incredible. And then someone says, terrible. or they'll say, that's the worst picture I've ever seen. Hope you're not doing this professionally. Here, I'm 62 years old, and I still get people say I'm a terrible photographer, right? So there's always a critic. Now, why would someone say terrible? Why would they say, Joel, your work sucks? Why? Well, they're probably insecure themselves, and they're jealous. Oh, I mean, there's a lot of things. And maybe my picture is terrible. It could be.
Right.
But the fact is that you can't just receive praises. You have to also learn how to receive criticism. And so we're human, and so we give in to the criticism and we quit, or you get discouraged, we quit. And so how many people's dreams have been shattered by one person telling them they suck? Many, many careers have been shattered. So I always say that it's impossible for you to go into the real world and go out and knock on doors or put your work out there without someone come along and say you suck, to where you are. I always say, if you have not been criticized to the point of tears, you have not entered the real world.
Right.
Because you're gonna be crawled up in a fetal position, bawling your eyes out in your closet because someone told you sucked, right? Because that's how we are as human beings, and none of us are that tough. None of us are so tough that we don't succumb to the criticism, and because we're all human, and so the criticism will come. So I always make the statement: you are weak, fragile, and secure, and so am I. That's who I am. That's my humanity. So let's go back to as I'm talking about this, is when I look at myself in the marketplace, or I'm trying to get to be a photographer that's working. I want to be a really good photographer, so I work on my skill set as a photographer, and then I get out there, and of course, it's harder than I thought, or doors slam in my face, or someone says I suck, or whatever. What I'm not understanding is the single biggest hurdle that I have to overcome is my humanity, who I am as a human being. Right? That's my biggest hurdle. And so, yes, I may be tougher than, some people, and some people may be tougher than me, but we're all weak, fragile, and secure. None of us are exempt from that. And I prove it to anyone. I you can be 6'6", 300 pounds and bench 600, or whatever. You can be the world's strongest man, and you're a weak, fragile, and secure human being. We know that the celebrities do that. They're gorgeous supermodels, and someone makes a little comment about them, they completely come undone. They say some of the most beautiful people on the planet are the most insecure. Mm-hmm. I can attest to that. I mean, no, but you would think if I looked like that, I'd sure be pretty secure, right? No, because we're all human. None of us are above that. And so I now have to learn how to navigate in a world and overcome my humanity. So I'll give you an example of this. Okay. You want to make a cold call, or you want to win over someone, maybe an art director or a photo editor, or whatever it is. You hope that will hire you to take pictures. And so, maybe someone like your uncle you say, here's an art director I know, give him a call. So you have to exert yourself to say, hi, I'm Joel Grimes, I'm a photographer, blah, blah, blah. That's hard. And even when someone pays the way for you, hey, my uncle knows you, says you're his best friend, even that's hard. So someone pays the way for you, it's still brutal to make that phone call. But most of the time, you don't have anyone paying the way for you. So you got a name of a photo editor, and you have to make the phone call. I know photographers that say, I'd love to work for this magazine. I go, have you ever approached the photo editor? Oh, no, I could never do that. Why? Oh, well, what if they don't like my work? Whatever. So that's their humanity, right? They are afraid. So why is it then that I'm so nervous about exerting myself in the marketplace to win over someone? Why is that? Well, as I said earlier, I feel like I'm, down on this low level, and they're the king, right? And I'm trying to get the audience to the king.
Get in. Yep.
And I'm so nervous, and I I think that, they don't have any problems. They don't have any insecurities. I'm the person that has all that, right? So I've had to learn how to exert myself in the marketplace. Now, there's a couple things that I had to learn early on, and I had a friend that really helped me with that. Steve Sammons, he was my studio mate in Denver, and he was a kind of a natural marketer. But he said, number one, the person you are trying to pitch is just like you. Really? No, just like you. They have a life. They have a job, right? They have a boss. They have deadlines. They have a life outside of their work.
Right.
Okay. So they're just like you. And they get overwhelmed. They get tired. They get grumpy. They get overworked. They get 15,000 photographers calling them. So when you call, they're kind of grumpy because you're the eighth in that last 10 minutes that's called saying, I want work. So they're just like you. Number one, they're just like you. So now, so I have to learn that when I'm making a phone call to someone, that it's not on a level like this. It's a level like this.
Yep.
So, and also I have to learn that their job requires, if it is true, if their job is required, that they hire a photographer. So if you're calling someone whose job is not to hire a photographer, you got the wrong person.
Right.
So that's number one, is you got to find the right person to pitch. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. But if I find the right person,
boom,
then now I have to win them over. So I have this thing called the Power of 8. And back in the days of
before you get started, though, I want people to, like, if you're just passively listening, you need to tune back into this, because we were talking about this pre-show. This right here is worth the price of admission. Sorry, I wanted to make sure people were paying attention to this.
Well, I say I can make you a rock star in the photo industry with a couple things. One is learning the Power of 8. The Power of 8 is very simple because they've done studies, and if you ever studied marketing, or you look at, like, you get a book on marketing and how to win over, there's a lot of books out there, a lot of guidelines on how to become a better salesperson. But one of the things that they talk about is that when you exert yourself to someone and say, hi, I'm Joel Grimes, I'm a photographer, I'd like to have you hire me, whatever. If you do that twice, so let's say you make a phone call, hey, I'm Joel Grimes. Oh, I'm really busy right now. They say, call me back. Okay, that's once. So then you say, 2 weeks later, you're calling back. Hey, I talked to you a couple weeks ago, and you said to call back, and hi, and I'd like to, come in and show my portfolio. And they go, yeah, I'm really busy right now. Call me back some other time. So if you do that twice, so let's say you exert yourself twice to someone, the odds of you getting a return on that investment is less than 10%. So not very good. But if you exert yourself 8 times, what am I got here? 8 times, the odds go up to 80% or more that you'll get a return on your investment. So let's talk about that. So if I go and I call someone up, what I do is I don't usually call first. I send a packet. I send a packet to Billy Bob Jones saying, and say he's an art director at an ad agency and he hires photographers. We know that. Or they're an art buyer, whatever they are. The role is to hire photographers. So I send a packet. Then I make a phone call. The phone call usually is not going to be Billy Bob Jones on the phone. It's usually a voicemail. So I go, hey, Billy, Joel Grimes here. I sent you a packet. I just hope you got it. I'd love to talk to you and see what kind of needs you have in photography. Right? Now that's 2. Then a couple days later, I call up, Billy, Joel here. I try to be somewhat enthusiastic because I'm an enthusiastic guy, upbeat guy. I say, hey, I just left you a message a couple days ago. I'd still love to come and meet you in person and talk to you about your needs in photography. Now that's 3. I keep doing that. Then I send another packet. And then I follow up with another phone call. I send another packet. And I make a phone call. And I get to what I call my Power of 8. One thing I know is by the time I get to number 8, Billy knows Joel Grimes' name. Now, why is that important? So I say, getting my name into the brain of the person is number one most important thing you'll ever do in marketing. And here's why. Advertisers know this. That's why Red Bull is slapped on every whatever it's branding, and they put Red Bull on everything. And airplane goes by, breaking some record, and it's Red Bull, right? Pops in your head. Red Bull, Red Bull, Red Bull. So when it comes to an energy drink, what do you go? You buy Red Bull because that's in your brain. Now, what happens is if you have to make a decision, okay, so let's go back to the power of 8 is extremely critical. And number 2 is you're not going to get into, as a general rule, you're not going to be hired based on your photography skills. Now, this is a blow to my ego, or a blow to the fact that I spent $150,000 on a college photography degree. It's not your photography skills. Now, why do I know that? Okay, let me explain why it's not your photography skills. Because you're overqualified. What? Are you saying I'm overqualified? Yes, you're overqualified to do about 80 to 90% of all photography jobs that are come down the pike.
Right.
Unless you're doing a super high-end car shoot for Range Rover, the chances are the job that they have on their desk, you can do in your sleep.
Yep.
Because you've done your due diligence, you've been working on your photography skills for years. And when they say, hey, we have a job, AT&T's doing a testimonial ad campaign, and they have this lady who has started a bakery down here on Main Street, and we want a portrait of her in her shop, a little testimonial portrait. Can you do that? In my sleep. It's not hard. One light, boom, strobe, bang, got it. I can do it in 1 hour. I can knock out a killer picture of a testimony. I've done hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of those pictures in my career, right? So it's my photography skills is not what's on the line. What's on the line is, number one, I get my name in their brain, and then here's what happens. That's the magical dust. My name's in their brain. Then I wait for the crisis. Now, the reason why a crisis is so important, I'll explain. If you're a photographer and you've ever had to hire someone, like an assistant, so I have to hire an assistant when I do a commercial shoot. If I have a couple assistants I've been using for 20 plus years, but in the days of my early Denver days, I didn't have that luxury of having someone that would be loyal to me or whatever that I had for a long period of time. But I would hire an assistant. So I had my little black book. I carried it before the iPhone. I carried it in my back, and then I would have a list of assistants, and I always have what I'd call my top 3 or 4. So I go get hired to do a job, and I would call my first assistant up, the one I really liked, and say, hey, I got to shoot next Tuesday. Are you available? And they go, no, I'm booked. Darn it. So I go to number 2 assistant. Hey, I got a job next Tuesday. Are you available? No, I'm going to visit my grandma. I'm out of town. Darn it. So I go to 3. So I start going down my list. And what happens is if I start getting toward the end of my list, so I have 10 assistants on my list, all of a sudden my blood pressure starts to go up because I have to have an assistant. And pretty soon they're all booked. They're all busy. My wife's having a baby. I can't do it. And I get down to number 10, and all of a sudden I'm in panic mode. I have to have an assistant. I don't have someone. So what I do is I ask someone, hey, do you know anyone else that's assistant? Someone says, well, I have this friend who's in college. He's never assisted before, but I go, what's their number? And they go, well, they may not be a very good assistant. I go, does this person have a pulse? That's all. I just need a body because I can't show up on my photo shoot without an assistant.
Right.
So I'm using an assistant who has absolutely no qualifications to be an assistant other than that maybe they're studying photography, or maybe they've never studied photography before. They just have a camera. I don't know. But I'm so desperate that all I need is somebody with a pulse.
Yep.
Now, the same exact scenario happens to every art director, every art buyer, every person that's ever hired a photographer. They have their list of their favorites. And when they start making the phone calls to see who's available and they get down through their list, at some point they start to panic because they got a photographer. Their boss says, we need a photographer for this job for AT&T next Tuesday. We need to have it done. And they start making the phone calls, and all of a sudden they go, all I need is a photographer with a pulse. You think this is crazy? No, for 40 years, I've been doing this. I would say that 80% of all the jobs I've ever been hired for is because I got in because I had a pulse. That's a blow to my ego.
I was going to say, I selling yourself short a little bit.
Yeah, because I think, my photography skills are getting me in the door. No, it's not the case. Also, the other factor is price is another consideration when we put bids in and stuff like that. But what I'm saying is that we think it's all based on the skill set of me being a great photographer. It's not the case. It's not the case. And so what I do is when I get my name into the brain of the art director or art buyer or whatever, photo editor, then when they have a crisis, they call Joel Grimes. Why? Because I got into their brain. And when you get in the brain, your credibility goes up. I'll give you an example. So they're sitting there. I always say this. I give this example a lot. I'm sitting at dinner. This is back when we had a landline hooked to the wall. Now we all have cell phones, whatever. But you're sitting to have dinner. Your kids are around the table, and all of a sudden the phone rings. You go, "Hello." They go, "Hey, ABC carpet cleaning. We're running a special this month." I go, I'm having dinner. Leave me alone. So next month they call ABC carpet cleaning. We're having a special this month. No, I don't need a carpet cleaner. Leave me alone. Click. Right. And so month after month, ABC carpet cleaning calls you. Right. After 8 times, ABC carpet cleaning is in my head. Right. So then my wife spills something on the floor. The dog does something on the floor, on the carpet. And all of a sudden she goes, "Joel, we need a carpet cleaner. Do you know this is a disaster? It's a crisis. We got company coming tomorrow night. We need a carpet cleaner." And I go, I heard ABC carpet cleaning is really good. Why? It's in my brain. The credibility spikes because it's in there. I don't know how it got in there.
Right.
It's a crisis. Same exact thing happens when you are out in the marketplace. Remember that you do your due diligence by being a good photographer. You do your due diligence by getting your name in their brain. And then when the crisis comes, you're there. Now, hopefully, your pricing is going to fit their budget. That's a whole nother thing. We can talk about. I talk an hour on that. But the fact is I built my whole career around the fact that I get in the door by having someone having a crisis. Now, there's sometimes I nurture an art director over time, and they finally go, "Joel's got a really cool style. We need that style for this campaign." That's later in my career as I've built the branding in the industry, and then they say, "We need this guy," and they go, "Well, he's going to be expensive. I don't care. We need this guy." That's the best scenario in the world to be in. But you don't start out like that. So you start out by getting in the door by having a crisis. Now, I'll give you another little tip. We talk about I'm overqualified. Okay. So I'm in the Phoenix Valley. It's the 5th largest city in America. Over, I think, 6 million, 8 million people in the whole valley. I don't know what it is. So 6 million, 5 million. I don't know. A lot of people, right? A lot of businesses. PetSmart's right down the street. Their headquarters. There's huge headquarters here in the Phoenix Valley. And you may be in Atlanta, you may be in Denver, you may be in Chicago. I don't know where you're at, You may be in just Tucson, Arizona. I grew up in Tucson, Arizona. But every city's got companies that need photography. Okay, every city. But let's just say I'm in Phoenix. And so in the Phoenix Valley, obviously we're in a weird time in history with a lockdown. But on the general case, from Monday through Friday, how many jobs do you think are being awarded to photographers every day?
I don't even know. A ton.
Okay, so you got big ad agencies, you got medium-sized ad agencies, you got small ad agencies, you got design firms, you got corporations you got big corporations, you got small corporations, you got weddings, you got senior high school portraits, you got, baby portraits. Whatever. There's a whole spectrum of jobs being awarded every single day in whatever town you're in. But let's just say Phoenix. So let's just say there's 100. I don't know. There's probably more than that. But let's say 100 jobs every day are being awarded to photographers. Okay. So the biggest question I have for you is, out of those 100, there's a skill set that needs to that is required to say fulfill one of those jobs. So a high school senior portrait. All right. Okay, an ad campaign, a little bit more skill set. So let's say you've been doing photography for 10 years, or maybe you're doing it for 3 years. I don't know. You have a certain skill set. I always say that if you knew all 100 of those jobs that were laid in front of you, how many of those jobs could you do with your skill set? 50%? 80%? If you're a really good photographer, 80% of all the jobs, you just say, there's a few, like, it's a little over my head. I got called to shoot the Broncos team portrait back in Denver. I'd never shot a big, huge, and they said, can you do it? I said, absolutely. Then I'm like, what am I going to do? How am I going to pull this off? I always said yes to everything, right? Well, so you could say yes to everything and then figure it out, right? It's not rocket science. In fact, photography is not really that hard if you spend enough time figuring it out. Right. But let's just say only 50% of all jobs being awarded every day, you have the skill set to accomplish. That means there's 50 jobs every day that you could potentially get.
Mm-hmm.
How many jobs do you need a day?
True. Just one. Right.
So out of 50 jobs, can you get at least one a day? Well, how do you do that? You got to market. But I talk to people, well, I'm just not quite good enough. I'm just working on my skills. No, you're good enough to do 50% of all jobs being awarded every day. Why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you going out and knocking on doors? What's keeping you? Your humanity. That's what's keeping you, because you don't want to be rejected and you're insecure and blah, 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 right? It's your humanity that's keeping you. It's not your skill set.
No, it's there.
So I can prove that over and over again. So, and then we do this a lot. Okay. We make an excuse for something.
Yeah.
Okay. Right now, all the gyms are closed, right? Workout facilities. So I can't work out now. Well, I do have a couple suitcases I could fill with, things. I could probably lift those and curl in my own home, There's a way to exercise, but I'm always making an excuse why. I got up a little late, so I'm not going to go to the gym. Whatever. I'll always make excuses. It's raining outdoors. So I remember my friend Steve, I said this. It was in February. It was in Denver. It was terrible. It was cold, rainy day, gray. It was like the worst day to be in Denver. And I made a comment walking by because we had our two little offices. I said, yeah, today's a lousy day to market. And he goes, that means it's the best day to market. I go, what? He goes, because every other photographer is thinking just like you. So no one's making phone calls today. Oh, okay. Right? So we'll make an excuse. So have you ever heard this? I'm a woman in a man's world. I'm a woman. I don't have the same opportunities as a man. Well, I've heard that, and there may be some truth to that. But who's the number one most celebrated photographer in America today? Annie Leibovitz.
Mm-hmm.
A woman.
Right.
So don't give me that excuse, or any other excuse you say. Hey, I can't do this because I'm only 5'2". Well, that's not a very good excuse. I'm colorblind, for crying out loud. I don't even see green.
Right, and that's when too. I want to kind of set a little bit of that stage. Hopefully, it's okay. A lot of people probably don't know that about you, that you're colorblind, and you still your work is on point. I mean, your editing, you keynoted at Photoshop World,
yeah,
or Adobe Max, one of the two. Yeah. But still, you are a featured artist up there, and you're colorblind. You didn't, you could have taken that, hey, I'm colorblind, I can't do that. You could have taken that excuse. You could have looked at doing something totally different, but you didn't. You stuck to it. You kept putting in the work. You kept pushing forward. And I think that alone is an inspiration for others as well. You can't just sit back and, like you said, use those excuses and hold, or you're not going to grow.
No.
If you don't want to grow.
So my colorblindness is actually the ace up my sleeve. Now explain why. A little side note. So I used to try to print color in the darkroom. Oh my gosh, it was a disaster. And the only way I got through my color printing class in college was I had my best friend, Carrick James. We would print at the same time. I'd find out when he's printing, right? So there was 3-4 color darkrooms. And so he'd go in the dark and do his thing, come out. And he'd look at his print, and I'd go and I'd wait for him, and he'd come out, and I go, "What do you think?" He goes, "Whoa, Joel, way too much magenta, way too much green, or whatever." And I'd go in there, dial it out, come back, make a print. He goes, "Okay, getting closer, but now add a little bit of this, whatever." And that's the only way I got through my printing glass, right? So that's how bad I was. I went to a dealership to buy a gray Toyota 4Runner, and I pulled into the driveway with the green one. My wife said, are you wanting to get a green 4Runner? I go, no, this is gray. She goes, no, it's green. I don't see green at all. So when I say I'm colorblind, I'm pretty colorblind. Now, but when I say that the being colorblind is actually the ace up my sleeve, meaning the one thing that gives me an advantage over my competition, and that is this. When you go, and most people, when they take a photograph and they bring it into Photoshop and they begin to build that Photoshop or that image, they are trying to, in some way or another, they're trying to create that image to represent what we would call more of a representation of the world around us, right? So you get accurate skin tones. You know, if it's a sunset, you get the colors correctly and whatever. So you're looking at trying to build a photograph that best represents the world around you. And so I can't really do that. So I also discovered something, that a photograph is not reality. It's not even close. It's a two-dimensional surface, right? It's a representation of reality. So if you go and try to get perfect skin tones, you'll never get there. You can get close, but you can never get perfect skin tones. So when I go in and create a beauty portrait, my job is not to get perfect skin tones. I can't do it. Well, I can't do it because I'm colorblind, and I know I can't do it because it's not. It's impossible. Digital or film or whatever has limitations. So what I've done is I said, okay, all right, if I can't accurately color balance an image, then I'm going to go a different route. I'm going to build an image that fits my vision as an artist and just say, here you go. And people go, whoa, what kind of treatment did you use? That's really cool. I want the formula of that treatment. People want to copy my treatment all the time. I go, well, I'm colorblind. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just going, okay, it looks good. Okay, to take a little desaturation out, blah, blah, blah. There it is. So now being colorblind has taken this huge pressure off me to try to make a photograph look real. And so I've gone the other way. It's more of a fantasy-ish approach to a photograph. And so it's a really weird thing. So it's actually worked to my advantage to be colorblind.
That's awesome. Isn't that crazy? That's the glass half full coming back. You know what I mean? Like, again, you didn't look at that as, oh, I can't do this. It's the glass is half full. Just like, your head wife had said about other things, the whole 90% and 10%. It's definitely a mindset shift, and shifting your mindset, towards that successful route and how you can overcome that. That is a huge inspiration.
Yeah. So let me just encourage people with one last. We can talk all day long, but let me get to a point that I think is very important. When you're trying to chase a dream and you want to make a living with your camera, there's a lot of people out there trying to do it, right? So you say, wow, I hear this all the time. There are so many photographers. How can I compete with so many photographers, right? And so, and it's true. You go to Hollywood to be an actor. A lot of people want to be actors. Pick a fun thing. A lot of people trying to do it. So how do you go and become something above and get above the masses? Well, one of the things that's going to happen to everyone, as I said before, is when the hardship comes, the discouragement comes, the beat down comes, you told you can't do it, you suck, whatever, it's going to come. All that's going to come, right? You're going to be rejected. The bulk of people, the masses of people will quit. That's what's going to happen. Very extremely talented people. When they create an image, it's like they touch it and it's gold. And you have to go and work and work and work and work to get bronze, maybe not even silver, But it's the person who can only make an average photograph, if they stick with it over 40 years, becomes on top. Because it's the people that are the most talented that give up. We don't know who they are. So it really comes down to one thing. You have to make a decision. Am I going to weather the storm? Am I going to go and take the beat down? Am I going to go and when I get discouraged, am I going to quit? No. You just keep going. So it's a mindset of moving forward, always moving forward, even in the midst of being beat down, even in the midst of being discouraged, even in the midst of an economic, downturn or whatever it is, coronavirus, whatever it is, 9/11, whatever it is, the stock market crashes. You just keep going. You don't quit. It's the people that don't quit that end at the top. So go to YouTube, type in Denzel Washington inspirational speech. What does he say? I went to Hollywood and I said, I'm never going to quit. No plan B. Just keep going. Arnold Schwarzenegger says, he gets up and gives a big lecture on motivation, says, don't quit. Always keep going forward. And so that's my message to people, is that it's not the best, the most talented, or the most creative people that are on top. It's the ones that never quit. And after 40 years, people say, hey, your photography is really good. I go, well, yeah, 40 years of doing it, it took me a long time. But it's that dedication to, okay, what did I say? I started out, I wanted to be an artist. Well, that's a driving force to me. It's not how much money I can make. The funny thing is all the photographers in Denver that I was around, that we were this group of young photographers that started up in the 80s. And all the ones that did it for the money are not doing it anymore. All the ones that did it because they had a passion for the craft and the being artists, they're still doing it. And you know what's really crazy is if you do it because of the love of being an artist, in the end, you'll make a lot more money than the people that don't. Because you can make some good money in this industry, but that's never been a motivation to me. Do I like money to pay my bills and all that? Absolutely.
Sure.
But it's never been the motivation. So I still have a passion for the craft and being an artist. That's there. And I have a dream. I keep working toward it. And I've made a living with my camera. So my dad said I could never make a living with a camera. My professor said, don't expect to make a living with your camera. All my friends and family members and everyone said, there's too many people trying to do this. You'll never make a living in photography. And guess what? I didn't listen to them.
Right.
Now, I didn't set out to prove them wrong. I set out to be an artist, but I did prove them wrong. And it's possible that you can prove. Now, it's also possible that someone that really, really loves you will discourage you. Right? My dad loved me. He just said, Joel, don't go down that path. That's poverty path, right? Come down to reality. So people that love you can be a negative impact to you because they don't understand. So I say just keep plugging away at what you love. And I say by being an artist, you're always out there trying to think of new way to create, to do something. And I always say, the print on the wall is everything, right? So you say, I can't wait to put this in a print and hang it on over my fireplace or whatever, or share it with other people. So I have a passion for the craft and I stick with it. I never give up. Have there been times I've been so beat down I wanted to give up? Yes, but I didn't. And I married I have a great partner, my wife, Amy. She's always stuck with me in times of, ruin. And she's always been there and she's always believed in what I could do and supported me in that. And we raised 4 boys. And people ask me this question: how would you define success? Well, I've had billboards, I've had covers of magazines, I've had ad campaigns that are hanging in, whatever. I've had a show at the Smithsonian, a 60 print solo exhibit for 18 months, did a coffee table book. I've done a lot of things. But I define success is that, number one, I've done what I love. And I've been able to provide for my family with my camera. We have to provide, right? Or be a part of the provision of a family or whatever that you have to pay your bills, right? Why not do that with what you love? And that's what I keep saying is I've done it with what I've loved. And so I don't care about how many followers I have on Facebook or how many awards I get. That means nothing to me. I look at the picture. I also look at the fact that I've been able to make a living with my camera to provide, and that's my success.
I love it. So I do want to kind of, where can people find your stuff online? because just so many great comments have come in. Love Joel Grimes, a man's man, easy to relate to. Brandon says, two of my favorite guys. Les says, great program. More people should hear him. Never quit. Jen Stitt, all the feels. Thanks, Joel, for being awesome. So again, if people want more from Joel Grimes, you put so much out there. You give so much back to the community. Where's a good place for people to find you online?
Well, everything now goes through joelgrimes.com. That's the hub of everything. If you go into the portfolio side, you'll see my work. But I have courses. I have a whole bunch of stuff, tools and things that you can help, the tutorials and all that. A lot of training there. I have no secrets. I love lighting, and you notice my work is very, very dramatically or lighting driven. And I used to say that how light strikes the face is everything. It's important to me. So you'll see that in my work. And so I work on that constantly. I'm always trying new things, always experimenting. And I love that exploration process. I love to, just recently, I came up with a new technique. I say new technique, but a different technique approach to some of my portraits that I had never done before, just experimenting. And I got so excited and I started sharing it a little bit. And so I'm always learning something new. And even at 62 years old, I'm not done yet. In fact, I feel like I could do this for 3 lifetimes and still not be done. So it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So I do want to pause here to reach out. If anybody does have questions, please get those sent in. We still have a little bit of time to get those questions answered. But like he said, there are no secrets here. So if you do have a question, now's definitely the time to ask it. Go ahead and put that in the chat below, and we will get that answered for you.
Well, and I'll mention, as we're waiting here, if someone brings a question in, when I first started putting my work out there and explaining how I did it, I had my friends, colleague friends of mine said, Joel, what are you doing? You're giving away your secrets. And I had this big smile on my face, and I said, there's only one Joel Grimes or one Billy Bob Jones, whatever. You can't steal me. I can tell you how I put the lights up, but you can't steal my creative vision. So no one's a threat to me, right? In terms of that, because if I keep going and doing what I love and keep doing experimenting, whatever, I'm always going to be ahead of the curve. So if I give you everything that I know today, tomorrow I'm learning something new.
Right. You keep pushing forward.
Yeah, and trends come and go, right? So I'm looking for setting a new way of, or doing a new way of making a picture. And so I always say, be ahead of the curve, not behind the curve. Don't be a follower. Be a I guess say a trendsetter, but be someone who's at the front of the innovation of new things and new ideas.
I love it. So I wanted to also, while questions are coming in, remind everybody that we are open here at the store. So from 10 to 7, Monday through Friday, and then 10 to 5 on Saturday. So if you need to swing by and pick anything up, we are available. We do have free shipping on a ton of items on our website, and we do offer curbside pickup. So if you need anything, you can order it online and we just drop it off right in your trunk. And we do these live streams every day at noon. So if you do have a suggestion or something that you want to see on a live stream, please let us know. I want to make sure that we are meeting your needs as a creative. If you are coming in the store, I wanted to kind of share what to expect. We are multiple times a day. We are disinfecting. We are cleaning the store constantly. Whenever there's customers that come in the store, we are donning our masks. Today is Casual Mask Thursday. So I have my llama mask, but we will be wearing masks, and we ask you to do the same. There's hand sanitizer here for you. We want your shopping experience to be as comfortable as possible. I also want to let you know, if you are into the business of photography and you want to learn more about the business of photography, myself and Justin Gamble we just put another episode out of the Talking Pixels podcast in which we talk about pricing. So definitely take a look at that. You could do a Google search for it or go to social.thepixelconnection.com and you can jump on there to hear more about that. So we are still planning to do our conference August 14th, 15th, and 16th down at Cleveland State. It is a 3-day conference with some of the top leaders in the industry. So you can see here we have a bunch of awesome speakers, and you can use the code Lunch and Learn to save $100 off of your admission. So that brings it down to $99. So if it's something that you're interested, just do a Google search for Pixel Photo Fest, or again, you can go to social.thepixelconnection.com and you'll be able to find it there. I also want to let you know that we are having our weekly photo contest. This week, the theme is long exposures. So all you have to do is follow us on Instagram at the.pixel.connection, and then use the hashtag #ThePixelConnection and hashtag #PixelLongExpo, and that'll enter you into a chance to win a $50 gift card. And we'll be announcing that winner tomorrow. So you still have about 24 hours, a little less than 24 hours to get your entrant in. I also want to let you know that Tether Tools is doing 10% off until the end of May. So we had a great talk with them about a week or so ago, actually about 2 weeks or so ago, which they talked about why you would want to tether. And they're extending that deal that they did during that presentation until the end of the month. I also want to let you know that Sigma is doing an additional $25 and $50 off certain lenses. So if you are looking for that Sigma lens, definitely want to take advantage of that now, because 5% is also going to local food banks or food banks that are in need. So in this case, the Cleveland Food Bank will get 5% of your lens purchase. Also, if you do need any help, we do have our one-on-ones. So let's say you want to sit down and talk about live streaming or starting a podcast or whatever that is. We'll sit down with you for an hour or so and answer whatever questions you have. And you can find those on our website on that social.pixelconnection.com or on the link that you see on your screen. So that brings us to the end. I'm going to jump back over here and see what questions that we have. Looks like we have a couple coming in. What is your recommendation to find a photography mentor? Easy to find professionals, hard to find someone who wants to be a mentor.
Well, okay. I get this question a lot because I am an encourager type personality, meaning that I'll if you like, I had a friend or someone that moved in next door to me in Tucson. He worked for Kodak for many years, and he's like, I kind of want to get back into photography, and I'm over there helping him. Right? No, I'm like, but then I get him started, and I say, I don't. My personality is not to hold someone's hand, right? Yeah. And my wife always says that I'm an encourager, but not a hand holder, right? I did that with my kids too. Now, I would say this to the person that is looking for a mentor. It's not a bad thing to do, get a mentor, someone, but you have to learn how to be a self-motivator. You can't always have someone there to encourage you. Like, how you go to the gym and you have a trainer, right? And some people have to have a trainer, right? But the trainer may not always be there. So you have to learn how to be self-motivator. So what I would say is to someone that is looking for a mentor is there's a better route. And that is go out and find a subject. If you're a portrait photographer like me, find a subject and shoot that person try to do that every free minute you have. That's the single greatest way to get an advancement in your skill set or whatever. Having a mentor requires setting up that time with that person, or if you have to pay for that person or whatever, and then you get in a groove of always expecting someone to stand over you. That's a dangerous place to be. So I'm not saying don't get a mentor. I'm just saying don't always rely on a mentor. Try to be self-motivated type. And I think we can find that. I get so excited when I get a subject in front of my lens. So, so that's where I live. I want to go, give me a subject. And then I'm in heaven.
Absolutely. And I think this last comment really does sum up this entire thing. As I say, thank you. Applicable to all aspects of life and business and any business. Great stuff. So thank you so much, Joel, for spending the time with us. It is greatly appreciated. I know you're very busy, especially with everything going on. So thank you so much for taking the time with us today.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, we're going to end it here, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow, noon, Lunch and Learn. We're talking about the Friday focus tomorrow. We'll see you.